Together we learn, together we grow, together we heal, together we flow. Be cool, every teacher, every school. 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 Be cool, every teacher, every school.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the SCEA Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. And if this is your first time joining our Cool Conversations program, you can find out more about Cool right here on the website, cool.us or cool.us, CEWL.us. Check out all the resources we have there. Eventually, we'll have tonight's live stream posted to the website. So if you're tuning in and you don't have time to watch the whole thing will be posted there probably tomorrow, but if not, the early part of next week. Before we get started tonight, I do want to just have a moment of silence for the third grade student from Bell's Crossing Elementary School in Greenville County today, who passed away tragically today. Our hearts and minds are with the family, friends, and the entire school community at Bell's Crossing Elementary School and with the Greenville County School District. If anyone there needs support, please don't hesitate to reach out to our UNISERV director for the upstate, Melody Bollinger, or myself. Let's just take a moment of silence. Thank you. Tonight, we're going to be speaking about advocating in the Palmetto State with Mel Moore. Before we get to that, I just want to take a moment to celebrate the incredible victory that the SCEA, NAACP, and a group of parents had in fighting back against the school voucher scheme. Won an important case, and we're really, really proud that the SCEA was one of the partners in bringing this case to trial, and we're extremely thrilled with it. You can find out more information about that victory on the SCEA's Facebook page. Sherry East and Tom, our new executive director, Tom Hudson, talk about it, and we're just thrilled. We're really excited because we know that that public school dollars belong in public schools. Doesn't make sense to give them the private schools. It'd be like going to your public school library and saying, you don't have the book that I want here, so give me a $50 gift card so I can go to Barnes & Noble and buy the book I want. That nobody would think that makes any sense. And yet that's exactly what school vouchers are. They're just going to the state and saying, we don't like the public option in our area. It doesn't have what I want or need. So will you please pay for us to go to take our kids to a private school that can discriminate and isn't going to be held accountable by any measure to the public? Doesn't make any sense. We all know it. Thankfully, the Supreme Court of South Carolina saw that it was not constitutional, and we're really excited about that. So it proves that we can win when we fight back, when we come together and we push together, and when we speak with a collective voice, we can win, and we can push back against these things that have come up, this attempt to pull us backwards. And so tonight we have a leading advocate in the state of South Carolina. Mel is the owner and principal consultant of GrassRoots Influencing The South, or GRITS, LLC, an organization that builds the power of the people to influence decision makers. Through their role at GRITS, Mel draws from perspectives of abolition, community care, reproductive justice, and disability justice to equip community members with the knowledge and skills to not only dismantle harm-creating systems, but to build a better world for everyone. Mel previously served as Director of Organizing for Women's Rights and Empowerment Network, a South Carolina-based nonprofit organization that advances the health, economic dignity, and rights of women, girls, gender expansive people, and their families. Mel has worked in LGBTQ+, reproductive, and gender justice advocacy since 2005, starting their career as executive assistant for Alliance for Full Acceptance, then Interim Executive Director for South Carolina Equality. For 9 years, they served as Executive Director of We Are Family, a Southern Grassroots nonprofit organization that provides affirming spaces for LGBTQ plus youth. Through that role, they launched Closet Case Thrift, South Carolina's first queer thrift store, advanced statewide policies to protect LGBTQ plus youth, and established the Trans Love Fund, the first grant program in the state to provide direct funding to transgender South Carolinians. In 2018, Mel launched the All of Us Resource Center, the precursor to the Charleston HOPE Center, for the unhoused community on a budget of $0. They co-created the Charleston YOUth Count with the Riley Center for Livable Communities, the first study focused on housing instability and food insecurity for youth in Charleston County. That same year, Mel delivered a TEDx talk on LGBTQ plus youth houselessness that got elevated to the global TED platform, earning them the status of featured TED speaker. Mel grew up in the small town of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, earned a bachelor's degree in sociology from the College of Charleston, and really excited about Mel being a part of our show tonight. Please welcome Mel Moore. How are you tonight, Mel?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. Did I miss anything in your bio? It's an extensive and impressive bio. What else would you like listeners to know about Mel?
Probably that I should shorten that bio a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's impressive, and we appreciate the work that you're doing and that you have been doing in South Carolina. And if you're like me, this kind of work, sometimes when people across the country see what we're doing, they're like, "You're doing that stuff in South Carolina?" I don't know if you ever get that, but you know, why not? Why can't we do this in South Carolina? I don't understand why folks always think that we have to follow, why we can't lead the way when it comes to advocacy. So what are some of your, let's start with some of your thoughts on advocating in South Carolina. What are some of the challenges you've faced and some of the sort of encouraging moments you've also experienced?
I think you really kind of hit on a big in South, and it's the perception that South Carolina doesn't always have led the way as far as like advocating for the civil and human rights of people, because the civil and human rights of people in South Carolina have been under attack since the U.S. was was ever established, since the colonial days, and the people who are closest to healing. And South Carolina organizing strategies, the most creative outside the box thinking that I've seen anywhere. And we get passed over because the work here is really hard, and funders don't always invest in places where you don't get easy wins. But I would say folks who are investing elsewhere, everywhere is going to be South Carolina. If you don't invest here, this is the head of the always has been since again, since colonial days. So
That's right.
I've seen such good work coming out of South Carolina, and I think a big challenge we got to get over is our own imposter syndrome as Southerners, number one. Another thing we got to get over is like we've got to flip some own stories and make sure that we're lifting up the stories of the people who are resisting the bad things that are happening here, because the stories that get told way too much are the stories of our oppressors, the people who are making the law, those laws that basically want to ban the stories that can be taught in our classrooms, right? The true history of the overcome oppression. So
Mel, you're breaking up a little bit, and I'm hearing about 95%. Is there a way you can, I don't know if you can switch over to where you were on your computer before, maybe? I don't know if that would be a faster connection, but I want to make sure people hear you, because what you're saying is so important. Can we take a moment to do that? Or are you still on Wi-Fi?
Break, and I'm on Wi-Fi, but I can try my computer again if you want to.
Let's try your computer, and I'm just going to take a short little break here, and I'll do a little promo. Take your time. Don't rush, and we'll bring you back on in a minute. Okay, so while we're waiting on Mel to switch over to her computer, I want to remind you that tomorrow is going to be our first Black Friday in South Carolina, and you can wear black to school, or you can, whether you're a student or an educator or someone in the community, everybody who's in solidarity standing up for public schools can wear black and participate in this. And what you do is you just wear black, and it doesn't have to be all black. It can be just like a black scarf or a black hat or whatever. Wear black, post a picture, and put the hashtag Black Friday SC, and then talk about why you're standing up for public schools. Maybe for you, you're standing up for against the book bans, or you're standing up for LGBTQ plus students, or maybe you're standing up for the freedom to teach. Whatever it is that you are standing up for, please. And hopefully you'll everybody will participate with that, and then it'll become a movement. But let's try to get back to Mel here. Mel. Uh-oh.
Hey.
Let's see if this works.
I think it's working.
Okay. You're breaking up again. You can hear me. All right. Let's just try it again. You what?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. All right. I think we're good. Let's try. Let's try to move on. I think your point is well made, that one of the things that I see happening, and this I'm guilty of this too, is it's so easy to get discouraged because you hear the bad news stories, you hear about the losses that we take, and we don't hear much about the victories, like we just had with the school voucher stuff. And we need to amplify those stories. And it is about changing narratives. I hear people talking about getting out to vote, which is critical and it's critically important, but if you're not taking some control over the narrative, the voting isn't going to shift or change dramatically. This is a battle over minds. So how do we improve our odds in that battle?
There's so much that can be done, and I have to get out of the mindset of having rallies all the time, outside holding signs, protesting. I mean, not to say that that's not a tool that we should use in our toolbox, but if we're trying to do let's influencing legislators and influencing policymakers, it's important to build legislator is, and I call this a seed, weed, and feed strategy. You've got to pull weeds of misinformation, plant seeds of truth, and nurture the seeds that you plant. So I want to say that I didn't believe in the process, right? I kind of wrote off doing any legislative advocacy, which really was me throwing a ton of power, and we don't even realize it. There's so much power in personal relationships, and our legislators are people just like anyone else, just like your neighbor. And they live close to you, and chances are you can set up an appointment with your legislator, especially now that it's an election season, everyone's seat is up. They're going to need to talk to their hear from you, try to reach out to them. I have to say my senator was Sandy Sen, and she was incredible at constituent services. I never thought me, being from my background, would be able to connect with a Republican legislator. But Sandy Sen was so attentive. She listened to me. And even when we didn't agree on everything, I still had a very strong relationship with her, and that was very valuable to me. And I think everyone has that opportunity, so we shouldn't pass it up. I think sometimes people think that the only ways to advocate is to drive to Columbia, to hold a sign out inside of the front of the State House.
Right.
And when you're outside of the State House in a faceless mass of people, you're not making a relationship with that legislator. So relationships move the needle on everything.
Right. Paige is watching. She asks, do we need to check with our district about what we can and do? I think she means can and can't do during elections. For example, wearing shirts with candidates. I think the answer to that is always consult with your particular school or district. But my understanding is political activities you can't engage in those. You can talk about like getting registered to vote, things like that, the importance of voting, but I don't think you can do any political campaigning for specific candidates or parties. inside the school building, especially during work hours or with a work computer. So just be careful to do that with your personal devices at home. The one thing that teachers do need to understand is that with your personal devices on your personal pages, in your personal time, there's nothing that you're a citizen too, and you have a right to be politically active, and you don't have to be neutral on your own time. It's just when you're in front of students, you don't say, hey, vote for Kamala Harris, or tell your parents to vote for Kamala Harris. That's not appropriate, obviously. So hopefully that answers your question, Paige. Yeah. So I really like that idea of not just making it about a day, really about making it a conversation. And that's why I'm trying to do these live streams, because it's really important for us to, first of all, connect with like-minded people to know that we're not alone. That we have a team of people. And I think that's one thing that happens to teachers is sometimes they feel like, well, I'm the only one in my building who's going to speak up, and I don't want to be that, I don't want to get the hammer taken down on me because I'm the one speaking up. And it's like, if people just understood that they have the power, that the teachers have the power, and we as the people have the power, we have collective power if we would just wield it. But a lot of times we're afraid of being the first one. So can you talk to educators out there who might be experiencing fear, and maybe what you did personally to kind of overcome some of the fears of being a person who speaks out?
Yeah, I think, fear is a pretty strong and powerful emotion, and and they bank on that. The people who are against, public education, and the people who are kind of trying to bring the hammer down on educators, right. They bank on the fact you're going to be afraid, but you cannot live in fear. The thing that's stronger than fear is hope. Another thing that's stronger than fear is love and community.
Right.
Tons of things you can do. You can help provide forward-facing people. We have this training called a Care Bear training. So we train people how to support people who are front-facing, frontlines people. We also, you could write letters to your legislators. You could get a group of people together, participate in a training, have a house meeting to bring like-minded community members together around the specific cause, whether it's a bill that you're trying to block or get passed, getting out the vote. There's a really wonderful organization called Be the Ones that is trying to increase voter participation. And I know educators they don't always make it to the polls a lot of times for one reason or another. So Be the Ones has this program called Friends Together, put people together, build community, text 5 of your friends, ask them to come out. It's easy to work with people who already know you. They're likely to answer your phone calls and your text messages when you do a call to action. It doesn't always have to be that you're going on Facebook Live, going on the news, or writing an op-ed or letter to the editor. Done, one-on-one or in a small group that doesn't necessarily get publicized. But I would say do whatever you can to reach out to your legislators and start building that relationship. And again, it doesn't have to go on the 5 o'clock news. You can just have a cup of coffee with your legislator. You can find out where your legislators are speaking, or if they're having campaigns. Most of them are right now. The season is hot. So find out where they're going to be, bring a group of friends, attend that event, and ask some very strategic questions. Ask them for what you want and see where it gets you.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed too is sometimes when people know that the fight is likely a losing one, then they don't want to even bother fighting. And I think this is sometimes short-sighted, that we see this sort of short-term battle that we pretty much know you're probably going to lose, but not understanding that without the resistance in the short term, even if you lose like on an election or on a particular issue, that if you don't put up any resistance and you don't fight at all, then you're really kind of sacrificing the potential for long-term success. Can you talk a little bit about like building towards long-term success and the importance of, even though you face great odds, why we should fight anyway?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that, because I can tell you, I guarantee losing strategy, not fighting or not showing up, you're guaranteed to lose if you're not going to try. So yeah, that's number one, try. Like, but step number two is, everything that we're seeing right now, we're so used to reacting to things happening to us in the moment. It's like, oh no, these bans. But you know what? These bans, social emotional learning, the attacks on critical race theory, you know what? Those were a result of people being upset about Obama becoming president.
Right.
It took years for them to get here to where because they saw that we were successful back in the day doing some advocacy around and were able to, I guess, elect former President Obama. The folks who are pushing for book bans and this whole wave of extremism in our legislature is a direct result of that and of the Black Lives Matter uprisings that happened in 2020. What we're seeing is, every time we have a little bit of success, they come back at us, right? Yeah. So their strategies are unfolding because they've been working on these things for years. They're not going out there trying to react in the moment. They had a too. And sometimes the long game means that you sacrifice in the short term. You're going to take an L here and there on short-term things. But when you have a long-term vision and a goal that you're going for, you have to be willing to take some hits on the way to that goal.
It seems to me that one of the strategies, and I think this goes back to Lee Atwater, as they were trying to figure out how do we gain success as a Republican Party when a lot of the South was Democratic, and it seems like the strategy has always been let's make sure that white Southerners feel like that their enemy is actually people of color, that the threat is actually people of color, and now it's more your real threat is whether it's critical race theory or trans people or the LGBTQ community, or it's always the framing of it that there's this outside group that is the enemy, so that you don't look at if you're a working class white South Carolinian, you're not actually looking at the power structures, the economic power structures that are truly impacting your life in ways where more and more wealth is being concentrated in the hands of the elite. Anything they can do to distract from that, using the media, using politicians, because you look at some of these politicians and the dearth of really any meaningful policy, and how would they be elected? And the only way to get them elected is to generate fear and to generate the othering tribalism that gets into people's limbic system, and then they go and vote out of fear rather than voting for their own self-interest. How do we convince enough people in South Carolina? How do we work with that? Because that limbic system can be so powerful to overcome fear with hope and love, like you said. How do we do that?
It's making space for your neighbors who you don't agree with, who don't agree with you, and being curious, listening to them and finding out why they believe what they believe. You ask a little bit of your story that relates to their story. You find common connection, and you don't tell them they're wrong. You ask them, oh, well, okay, well, tell me why you think that. I believe this, but I'm interested to know why you believe what you believe. And then sometimes people will persuade themselves out of bias. So a lot of, for instance, they don't know that they know LGBT people. And all they know is what they've heard or seen on whatever news channel, Fox News, whatever it is that they're watching. They're internalizing that message.
Right.
But you don't have to go out and think about every single person who lives in South Carolina that you need to reach. You need to reach these 10 people, and you start there. And then those 10 people will start rippling out. And sometimes it takes a little while for those seeds to take root in people's minds, but they do take root. And you alluded to something that reminded me of Bacon's Rebellion, that tactic of pitting communities against one another while the ruling class is
Right.
distracting you so that you don't notice your lunch money's being taken. It's a tactic as old as the 1600s. In Bacon's Rebellion, I mean, a little history lesson that, if they're successful, they were going to censor out of the classroom. But Nathaniel Bacon, I'm not going to go deep into it, but essentially enslaved people of African descent and indentured servants of European descent banded together to fight the ruling class, who looked like the people of European descent. So what they did was to create a class, a category called whiteness, that essentially who looked like the people of the ruling class so that they would pledge their allegiance. And that's something that is a tactic that is still working today. That's what we're looking at right now. So they're pitting each other, pitting marginalized groups against one another so that they're not noticing who are the people actually coming for your lunch money. And I would say too, that those who are pointing the fingers, saying that information in libraries is dangerous, are the ones who are being investigated for child pornography. Freedom Caucus are the ones who have been arrested and acquitted. I will say a senator who was arrested and acquitted of child abuse, biggest book banner out there. He is a hypocrite, and he accuses the LGBT community of the crimes for which he was arrested. Right? This is a smokescreen, and it's a dangerous smoke because you don't know any better that, just being LGBT means you're an abuser. So they're not looking for real signs of abuse. So these guys who are telling you, no, the abusers are over there. And the only thing you have to look out for is them being queer. They're not looking for the straight-laced looking, with shoes, like clean-shaven Christian talk show host. Right? They're not thinking about him.
Yeah, it seems there's a lot of projection, and I talked about that last week on a live stream. And one of the things, if you look at, for example, in the debate when Donald Trump starts talking about Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, supposedly eating cats and dogs, and then you go and ask the mayor and the town manager and the governor, and they're saying this isn't happening. Yet this is being promoted by a person who's running for president, not like a fringe candidate, like the actual nominee of the Republican Party. So you have to ask yourself, why would that come up? Why would he think to talk about something that's a conspiracy theory? And let's say even there's one or two cases where that's true, which I'm not aware of that, but let's just say that's true. You're indicting an entire community of people on one or two acts, even if it were true, which there's no evidence that it is at this point. And so why would you do that? Well, you do that for exactly what the reason you're saying. You need the white people to look at the issue. The problem isn't wealth inequality. The problem isn't that you don't have affordable health care. The problem isn't that college tuition and housing is unaffordable because of the policies that we've put in place. The problem is these Haitian people who've come to America, and they're going to steal your jobs, and now they're going to steal and eat your pets. And the idea, and it's like that to me is so cynical and so awful to pit human beings against each other and divide them. But that seems to be the primary tactic that the GOP is using with certain candidates, and I don't want to say all of them, but certain candidates to get elected. And I think your point is well made, that it's about conversations. And one of the things that I think sometimes we do and shoot ourselves in our own foot is we immediately, when someone has a neighbor or someone in our sphere has an opinion that's outside of our what we consider to be acceptable, we meet that with judgment and not curiosity. So I really like what you said about let's inquire what's really behind this, and maybe that person kind of comes to the conclusion in themselves that their position isn't tenable. Is that kind of how you approach it? Because I think when we immediately judge and label and say you're not following what I believe, so you're a bad or you're deplorable, I think we alienate people who could potentially be allies.
Absolutely. Well, there's a quote that comes up for me that the child who's not down to feel its warmth, right?
Mm.
And honestly, none of us started out with perfect takes or beliefs on
Right.
anything, right? We all have messed up beliefs, all of us. And sometimes it takes new information to help us change our minds. I think things have gotten so people don't want to be associated with somebody who, say, is on what they think is the wrong side of history. Like, for instance, as a white person, we might be tempted to distance ourselves from someone who is racist because we don't want to be viewed as racist. But you know what? Does that help Black and brown people? No. It's our job to do the emotional labor of
Right.
helping people who have shared identities with us, not be harmful towards people who don't share identities with us. So when we have the more privileged identity, and we have a friend who has the same identity, who has it's our duty to engage in conversation around those views, to try to help that person move on to a better way of thinking, to a different viewpoint, but not by saying we know better than that person. You don't want to come into a situation who really wants to listen to someone who makes you feel like you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Like, get defensive.
Yeah, that's such a powerful point about privileged identities, because sometimes what I see is, people really people from marginalized communities trying to protect themselves by kind of creating that separation, which is totally understandable. But if I love the idea, if I'm a privileged identity, if I'm not one who's under constant threat as a heterosexual cisgender white male, if I'm not under that kind of threat and I don't have to live with any of those fears, for me to step into that space where people are promoting bad ideas and say, well, and with curiosity, try to change that narrative. I think you're right. Like, it is a privilege for me to just say, no, I don't want to be I need to reject it as well because my friend did. It's like stepping into that space of saying, listen, this is a lot for this person. This person's already carrying a lot. Let me try to carry some of that, and not just ignore the problem.
Point, I think it's important it depends on our goals, right? So what is the biggest need in a situation? And if you're, say, in a situation and you see someone being harmed, what's the most important thing there? Helping the person doing the harm not do harm, or stepping in between the harm and being like, hey,
right.
and getting in the face of the person who's doing harm so they stop. And now they have to come through you to get to that person too. So you're diffusing the harm kind of, but when you get into someone's face who's being problematic or harming another person, you also need to have consent from the person who's being harmed in a way that you're not just stepping in and making things worse.
Right.
But tools for different situations. So when we're seeing someone being harmed, we want to be a good listener, a good ally. Yeah, we get into the face of that person who's doing wrong. They need to be called out. Now, if we're playing a long game and we want to help that person who's doing the harm stop being so harmful, that is, we listen. We listen more than we speak. And when we speak, we try to tap into the pieces of their story that connect to our story.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who, with good intentions, and I include myself in this, I think they call it white knighting. Like you want to come, I see the bad person and I come in with my sword and I save the day, and you want to, it's like, that I think we have to really look at when that's coming from a place of ego versus a place of I'm trying to thoughtfully and intentionally help, which I really love what you said about, getting the permission of the person that you're white knighting for, like does that person really want you to step into that space, whether it's like a female and you're a male, or however the dynamic is. And I think sometimes too, we do that to signal that, hey, I'm not the racist, and let me come in and show you how not racist I am and how unbigoted I am, and by really attacking this person on your behalf. And then, like you said, I don't know long term how much that's actually helping the person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your advocacy, when it's about you, it's about you. But when don't make it about you. It's like when you're trying to help community, or, it's about the community, it's about the person.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you want to step in and help someone, so that's a really good point.
Last week I had a conversation. Actually, it was last week with Jed Derryberry about LGBTQ advocacy, and I wanted to pick your brain about that. Like, what are you're in that space here in South Carolina? What do you see as the primary issues that allies can help with that community?
Well, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
They are the powers that be, or the lawmakers. Many of them have a crusade against the transgender community specifically, but all, and they're making it. It's like a classic bullying tactic on a systems level. Like, imagine schoolyard bullying, but systems level. So what does a schoolyard bully do but isolate their victims? So what they're doing for LGBT people, for that support, they're attacking teachers who might be a person that like their sexuality is natural and normal. Everyone develops a sexuality, and everyone develops a gender identity, and everyone's going to have questions about this. So the attacking anyone who might support a young person is so dangerous, because we know that protective factors against suicide are when a young person has teachers and clergy members and parents or people in the community, adults in the community that they can trust to confide in, who are not going to judge them or shame them for who they are when they're given they are. So we must provide cover for anyone whether young or adult, who is experiencing suicidal feelings, for example, mental health challenges, who needs to just talk to someone and not be judged for how they're feeling. Just on being that safe person is the easiest thing that you can do, is just listen without judgment to folks. But also, when you hear that narrative, that very dangerous groomer narrative that like just being LGBTQ plus is somehow harmful, or is like what a human being should be like, push back on that, because we know that is not true.
Yeah.
Things like.
Go ahead. I was going to say
I'm sorry.
the lawsuit that the teacher is bringing in the Low Country over being essentially accused of being a groomer and pedophile, and we talked about that last week as well, and how, that's an incredibly dangerous charge. But I think you're exactly right that what they're trying to do is make people so scared to provide any kind of support to an LGBTQ youth, even provide a book or any kind of resource, or just a person to talk to, a shoulder to, or someone to confide in, to make it seem like a person who would do that must be grooming that child for some kind of sexual relationship, is so, I hesitate to use the word evil, but it's just so immoral and unethical to do that, knowing that these librarians and these school teachers, that's not at all what's happening. And yet some of the people who are actually, like you referred to earlier, who are making these charges, often you find that they're the ones engaged in that stuff.
The most to hide. They have innocent people because they're hiding their own stuff, right? Now, it is scientifically proven that when young people have more access to information, when young people understand, like I heard in a hearing the other day, there was a book that has themes of like a young person experiencing sexual in the library. Well, another person that person's age, imagine you are a young person experiencing sexual abuse. You go to the library to try to find information and you find that book, and that book tells you what that looks like, right? Or there's a book that you're trying to read to learn about your body and what consent means.
Mm-hmm.
It is scientifically proven that more information is a protective factor as well for kids. It doesn't make things worse. It makes things better. It makes kids understand themselves better. It makes kids understand the world better. And I'm seeing like even liberal religious folks adopting that and absorbing that narrative that is so dangerous, because the thing you need to be looking for with grooming, don't let any adults be alone with a child uninterruptible and unobservable. That's number one. That's what we need to be looking at. Nobody should be able to be alone with a young person in a situation where they cannot be observed or interrupted.
Right.
Not having access to a library book.
Right.
Okay, like that. Having books with information is going to put ideas about sex into anyone's head. Like, how young were you when you first thought about any of that? And was it because of a book? Was it? No. Like, I don't know about you. I was already there. All of society, sex and sexuality everywhere, on every billboard, magazine cover, everywhere. It's everywhere.
The idea of conflating some of these books, like I read Genderqueer, and even conflating that book with pornography. Yes, there's sexual content in it. Yes, there's some explicit stuff in there. But I mean, if you read the book, it's not to put that in the same category with pornography is just disingenuous. It's absolutely, you're betraying the meaning of that. Then that word has absolutely no meaning anymore. And there's no, pornography doesn't exist in libraries. School librarians have to make calls and bring in, and they're bringing in a lot of different types of books. And the thing is that no child is forced to check out a book, and parents already have control over the books that their children check out, because they can put holds on through the school, or they can tell the school, please don't let my child check out any books. But the idea that they're going to go ahead and ban any book that has any sexual content for all students of all ages is, again, like you said, it's the imposition of some people's religious and moral values onto the rest of us, which everybody has the right, and I want to make that clear, everybody has the right to their own individual moral views and religious views. It's that in the public sphere, when people are trying to make it out like my view on homosexuality or being transgender is the correct view, it's a sin, and so that sinfulness has to be obliterated in any way that we can make that happen in public schools. I don't understand how people don't see that as a violation of their own rights. Like, no matter what you believe, we don't want people imposing their particular belief sets on the rest of us. And it's difficult because I think there's some superstitious thinking that goes along with this. Is like, if I don't do this, maybe I'm going to hell. Maybe I'm being complicit with the devil, and I think that again, it gets back to fear over love and hope, and people give into that too much.
Absolutely. I think that, the fear is a really strong motivator, and it makes people easy to manipulate, But think it is really dangerous, this road that we're going down, where we're obscuring what real abuse is and disrupting systems of support for people who might need help.
Right.
And I will say too that LGBT young people are more likely to be abused as children, and it's because they're least likely to be believed. And not allowing support networks like teachers and clergy to be able to be those safe places for a young person to come and disclose that is so dangerous, and it obscures what real abuse is. We are confused about real abuse. Real providing books is not it. And I remember growing up, I knew I was queer immediately. Like I knew I was a little trans boy, like the minute I knew what gender was and could walk and talk. And I had no representation. I know that I had queer teachers and they were closeted. I didn't know they were queer till later.
Yeah.
When they came out, but I didn't know anything about myself or how to be healthy. All I knew was that I need to change. There's something wrong with me because everybody's telling me that being gay is wrong and being trans is wrong. I'm an abomination. So you know where that led me to horrible ways to escape like who I was. So I tried to be cisgender. I tried to be straight, and that's just not me. And you know, it led me down a really dark path of depression, substance misuse. I drank a lot. I almost didn't survive it. And, you know, it's sad that I almost didn't survive being a young person. I almost didn't grow up. Simple is not just like, all you have to do is, you know what I mean? It's a simple, really simple fix. Like suicide is an endemic, especially among LGBTQ plus young people. And there's such a simple, I don't want to call it a solution, but a way to help. And that being open and listening and not judging people and just being supportive and understanding that, like, you know, we come in different shapes and sizes, and being LGBTQ plus, being queer, however you identify, is just another way that adults grow. You know, it's another way to be human. It's another type of human.
Yeah, and this idea, to me, if we're going to talk about a sin, the greatest sin is to make a person constantly question their identity to the point where you're saying to them who you are fundamentally. Like you said, the word abomination. You are a sin. Your identity is a sin, and you have to live in conflict with that for the rest of your life in order for society to accept you. And that is such a damaging thing to do, particularly to a young person, to tell them that, you know, like when they go to the library and hearing these stories of they looking for a book on it with a trans character and it's in the restricted section or it's blocked. So what does that say about their identity, that it's something to be restricted, something to be censored? And the damage that does, and I appreciate you having the courage to share your personal perspective, but that's, you know, thousands and thousands of children across the United States who are experiencing the mental health outcomes of having to live with that, whether it's coming from parents or coming from their community, and now can't even go to the school and feel like it's a safe place to be themselves. Is it's so disheartening, and my heart goes out to those students and to teachers too. A lot of teachers who have to live in fear that their identity is going to be somehow disclosed, and that's going to bring some kind of ridicule from the community or parents. They're going to be
happening.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Before school even got back into session, people were getting letters. Parents were getting letters from the schools because of that law that passed this session that banned gender affirming care and also had a forced out provision. If a child is suspected of having a gender identity that conflicts with, I guess, what's on the birth certificate, I don't know, then the parent gets a letter. And you had mentioned, like, in my long ass bio in the beginning that I had a TED Talk. Well, I did that TED Talk on what happens to, like, why so many unhoused young people, why 40% of the young people unhoused are LGBT. So I can't think of any kind of God or any kind of religion. Most religions are based in love and belonging, right?
Right.
Just it's the people misinterpreting them or manipulating messages for political gain.
Yes.
I can't think of any religion that would value discarding your children, like because of something that because of who they are.
And kids know. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I get really hot on this.
Kids, that's the thing that makes me so scared about the House Bill 464 being enacted is that a lot of kids know that they cannot disclose this information to their parents because they will be kicked out of their homes or abused or both. And so then it's like, who do I go to? Well, where are they going? They're going to school, right? And if they see an adult that they trust, that they feel like they can confide this information and talk to, it's not because they're trying to, that the teacher's like, just tell me and we can keep it a secret from your parents. It's not, it's just that it's up to the child. If they don't feel safe telling their parents, why would we put the teacher in position or the school in position to disclose that back to the parents, knowing that this could result in, like you said, houselessness or abuse.
Or abuse or suicide or even worse. Like we've dealt with some really terrible cases of, I don't even want to talk about some of the things I've seen when I was a youth advocate that parents have done to their children because of their LGBTQ identity. It's disgusting. And I can't imagine would promote that, harming a child like for who they are. Yet it happens all the time and they do it in the name of religion. So yeah, watching these letters go out and then I really feel for the teachers too, because like, you know, if you're a teacher that then losing your job too if you don't out that child. Right. So then you're a teacher in danger if you're not in compliance. So it's just a mess.
It is a mess. And I hate to think about this, but I think it's going to take potentially, hopefully we can overturn it without this happening. But I fear what's going to happen is one of these students is going to go home and find out from the parents are going to find out from the school, something terrible happens to the student. And then there's a lawsuit brought against the school or the district, because I mean, like, I don't see how that's going to happen at some point where a student is harmed because of this policy. And I just don't see how that can be sustained in the face of that, of knowing that real harm is being caused to students because of this policy. It's just unconscionable. I don't understand where we're headed. I thought I was kind of hopeful. You mentioned Obama, and I worked on his campaign in 08 and when he won the South Carolina primary, and then eventually won the presidency, I sat in my living room and cried for a couple of hours because I just thought, well, finally we've turned this page. And I really felt like we'd evolved, kind of moved forward out of the Bush-Cheney years, but moved into this space where things were just going to get better. And the reaction now, the way the pendulum is swung back, give us some hope. Let's not tap into that fear. What is your message of hope for people listening tonight as we close our time together?
I'm going to say what my mom always says to me, and that's that perseverance is the difference between success and failure. And I'm sure someone else said that too, and she got it from them, but you keep trying.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what the fall of Rose stuff, right? So for 50 years, they were trying to dismantle that, and they did. It took 50 years. Sometimes, this stuff didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to get better tomorrow. But you got to keep showing up and bring more people with you every time you come, because we got to pass that so that we can get rest, so that more people can be, running that race with us if we need to tap out for a little bit. And I think participate in some of the really cool relational organizing activities. We have a training coming up next Wednesday through Pro Truth. I will be facilitating a essentially how to use relational. Yeah, that's it.
This is it.
It's a that's the open mic. Yeah.
Okay,
So that one's this. Yes. So next Wednesday we're gonna be doing this, training folks on how to have those conversations with folks where we listen and share stories. So this is our training on like active listening and relational organizing, and that's next Wednesday. You can sign up here, and then the following Wednesday, we're doing a banned book open mic. So if you want to bring your favorite banned book and read an excerpt, if you got some poetry you want to read, we're going to be doing this at the Purple Buffalo. There's tons of community out there who believe in the similar things that you do and value books and learning. So come and create community with us. Go to Be the Mayor. I'm going to plug her real quick. She's doing excellent work trying out the vote, not just getting out the vote, but increasing voter participation. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of folks just win their elections either by filing in South Carolina and they're going unopposed, or winning their primaries and that's it. Because and I believe the primary percent of the people who are registered to vote, 13% of registered voters voted.
Right.
Our voter participation rates are abysmal. So go to the polls on November 5th and go to Be the Ones and check out some of those activities there. She has a really cool Friends Voter campaign, home screening for a week on that Tuesday as well, ahead of our open mic night. There's tons of really good organizing happening and ways for you to plug in, share joy with community. It doesn't always have to be boring and
right.
Our work, we try to make our work fun. So right. I can tell you, if you get time.
Great. Well, Mel, it was nice I've seen your picture. I've seen you on social media a lot, and it's nice to finally have this conversation. Hopefully we can do it face to face at some point, and we can continue to have conversations like that. I think they're really important. Really appreciate the work that you're doing. It's hard work, but I'm hopeful, and I think we just keep promoting love and keep pushing back against fear. And I think the arc is we're going to eventually get to where we need to be. It's just that the trajectory is just not a straight line up. There are these valleys that we face together, and we stick together through the valleys. But we're going to continue to move forward and upward. And I have long-term faith and hope that that's where we're headed as a state in the country. Thank you for doing your work.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for.
All right, everybody. That was Mel Moore, and really appreciate their time tonight, and hope you enjoyed the conversation. A few things that I want to promote before we sign off. We will be having another live stream with Mev McIntosh on September 24th. She's going to be talking about her advocacy journey. An amazing advocate here in South Carolina. We are going to have our first episode of Cool Beans, the teacher induction show. That is with Angelica McDonald, the teacher here in the Florence area, and Dr. Marcella Weinsnyder, who is our Cool Induction Institute leader and teaching and learning specialist. That'll be on September 26th. We're going to be talking about safe boundaries with students at 6 o'clock. And along those same lines, for induction teachers, we have something called Cool Coaching, which is free online one-to-one support for induction teachers. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday evening from 6 to 8 o'clock. I think they're just wrapping up a session now. And you can go in any Tuesday and Thursday. Just go to cool.us or cool.us/coaching, and you can get connected with one of these veteran educators to get the support that you need. We also have coming up on October 8th, Jaleesa White, who's a teacher in the Greenville area. She's going to be talking about how mindfulness changed her life. A really, really inspiring story that I think you'll enjoy. Jaheim President, a middle school teacher at Berea Middle School, is going to be talking about his first year of teaching. That is on the 22nd of October. On the 24th of October, Audrey Kalianos, who is a registered dietitian, is going to be talking about gut health and anxiety. Incredible information. That's the 24th of October at 7 o'clock. Coming up on November 6th, we have Erica Ayers, who's going to be talking about supporting student health, head to heart. And please save the date. Our induction symposium, our second one, is going to be held November 9th in Columbia, South Carolina, starting at 10 o'clock. You can find more information about that at on the Cool website, and you can register and get your folks. Anybody who is in the first 5 years of their profession, of the teaching profession, can join us for that day. And last but not least, tomorrow I want to remind everybody is the start of our new campaign called Black Friday SC. And basically all you have to do is wear black, and it can be like a black scarf, a hat, a shirt, whatever, and wear black tomorrow and every Friday, and then post your picture or video with the hashtag Black Friday SC. And this is just to show that we have solidarity across the state in standing up for our public schools. And what does that mean to you? What does it mean? Does it mean standing up against book bans, standing up against school vouchers, standing for better pay and working conditions for teachers, standing up for true unencumbered time for teachers? What does it mean to you to stand up for public schools? So you talk about that in your post, and let's just come together and show solidarity. It's simple. Everybody's got something black in their wardrobe. Everybody can wear something black on Friday, and just post a picture of it. Hashtags Black Friday SC. We hope to see Facebook and social media flooded with that tomorrow and every Friday. I want to thank again Mel Moore for their participation in tonight's live stream and the work that they do. And I want to thank you for tuning in and being a part of our cool network and the SCEA. If you are interested in joining the SCEA, we are the movement. I mean, the SCEA is the one. We are the group, along with the NAACP and parents, that won this, litigation to bring an end to school vouchers. It's a step in the right direction. We are the leading movement, and we invite you to be a part of that. If you'd like to do that, just look at the bottom of your screen as it scrolls across. You can join our movement at jointhescea.org, or if you're on your cell phone, just text the word join to 48744, and you can join and be a part of our movement. Lots of great benefits. When you join us, you join your local, your state, and the National Education Association. We're so thankful. Cool is brought to you by a grant from NEA, and we're so thankful to NEA and being affiliated with them. So please consider joining our movement at jointhescea.org. And if you are already a member, go find a new member to be a part of our movement, because when we work together and we fight together, we win together. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the 24th with Mev McIntosh.